Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And it will come as a surprise to absolutely no one that the Scottish education system is a car crash. The NHS is collapsing, the economy is down the toilet, and social care is virtually non-existent. And this is all because you-know-who is obsessed with you-know-what and is not doing her day job. But then the department that is responsible for the Constitution is spending £370 million a year on Scottish embassies, whatever they are. Because after all, around the world, it would be the British Embassy that would cover all things relating to this. Why do they need a separate Scottish embassy? Well, it's £370 million a year that could be spent on other things, better things, things that help Scots people. So, what's going on in Scotland? Well, it's a complete shambles, and this is all because of you-know-who's obsession. But of course, it gets worse. Now plans are afoot and looking at the legal ramifications of spending public money on party matters. This, of course, would be illegal and could lead, if it comes to a court case, to certain parties going to jail. And wouldn't you love to see it? Let's look at this report. So, straight in, UK ministers seek advice on whether Nicola Sturgeon's independence drive is unlawful, as First Minister faces new legal bid to stop the SNP spending public money on Indy Ref 2. Government officials are working on an independence prospectus costing £1.5 million. UK ministers demand urgent clarification on if using taxpayer money is legal. It's not. It is completely illegal for public money to be used for party matters. Supreme Court ruled that Westminster's consent needed for new referendum, which she didn't get, and so anything she does now for that is a waste of public money and therefore would be illegal. But she can't let it go because she's like a bulldog, chewing a wasp on this one. Anyway, UK ministers are seeking advice on whether Nicola Sturgeon's independence drive using public money is unlawful, which of course it is. I think they're just going because they just want it formally admitted that it's illegal before taking matters further. Civil servants in the Scottish Government have been allowed to help SNP ministers, but now that the Supreme Court has ruled the policy area is reserved to Westminster, the policy may now be in question, and UK ministers will demand urgent clarification on whether it's lawful this week by writing to the Permanent Secretary for the Scottish Government, John Paul Marks, and who are seeking Whitehall advice. It comes after 5 judges unanimously ruled in the Supreme Court last week that the Scottish Government cannot press ahead with a referendum without the consent of Westminster. And of course that consent was not forthcoming because she does not have that authority. It is a reserved matter. She absolutely hated the fact that it was a reserved matter. She really just absolutely just wants to become Queen of Scots. It's her only driving ambition. She will have nothing else in her life. That and harming children. It's the only things that sort of interest her at the moment. It has emerged that 24 government officials are working on the updated prospectus for independence, and their salaries costing £1.5 million. That's £1.5 million of money that could go into education or social care, something that makes a difference to people, instead of just pleasing that narcissistic psychopath. But no, you can't spend it on anything useful. You have to spend it on Nicola's desires. Last week, Sturgeon refused to commit to reallocating a £20 million fund set aside for a referendum, which is now not going to happen. So that £20 million can be dispersed among the various groups that are needing it. A group of businessmen has obtained legal advice suggesting it may be illegal for ministers to use public cash on independence when they do not have the power to hold a referendum on the issue. This group, led by care home tycoon Robert Kilgore, claimed it is scandalous that public funds and civil servants' time is being used to draw up the case for independence rather than SNP money. And they have obtained initial legal advice suggesting the case is arguable in court, and I would love it to go to court. A leading KC has now been instructed to set out options, including a possible judicial review in the Court of Session. And this case is set to focus on the claim that the use of public resources on an independence by SNP ministers is ultra vires, and that meaning beyond their legal power or authority, and therefore the spending of public money on it is illegal. Mr Kilgore, chairman of the Scottish Business UK, said Nicola Sturgeon is using public taxpayers' money and civil servants for party purposes, and we're seeking legal advice on the options in front of us. Enough is enough. And the thing is, the people like Kilgore and his horde, and I mean that in the cohort manner, not his horde as in invading horde. They're the ones that, should Sturgeon get her independence, they will lift their businesses and they will leave Scotland, because they're not going to put up with the things that will happen immediately after that little Marxist takes control. He said, I waited to see what her and the SNP response is, and it seems to be full steam ahead on spending public money and using civil servants on what is, from the Supreme Court ruling, quite clearly party campaigning activity, not something that is within their remit as an elected government to do. It is absolutely scandalous that they are doing this. It is arrogance beyond belief, and it is a complete insult to Scottish taxpayers. The group is also assessing whether to raise concerns in the legal case about the £370 million budget of the Constitution, External Affairs and Culture Department, overseen by Angus Robertson, which includes spending money on overseas Scottish, and they put it in quotes, embassies. Initial advice from the lawyer David McKee of Levy and McRae, who represented Alex Salmond in his famous successful judicial review against the Scottish Government over its handling of complaints about him, has indicated the case is arguable, but that the detail will need to be examined further. So it is an arguable case. They can take this to court, and I hope they do. A leading KC has been instructed to provide further assessment. Kilgore added, they are treating Scottish taxpayers' funds like their own piggy bank, and they are behaving like a South American banana republic. I'm sorry, you are doing banana republics a disservice. They're far, far worse and far more corrupt. The government has already published 3 Building a New Scotland papers setting out the case for independence. Publishing costs so far are nearly £20,000 for the first and £10,000 for the second. The cost of the third has not yet been revealed. It won't be any less, will it? James Mitchell, Professor of Policy at Edinburgh University, told the Sunday Times it's quite possible that in taking this case before the Supreme Court, the SNP has, he can't really say the words because YouTube don't like it, but let's say done itself a disservice by making officials less willing to cross the line between party and government business. And a government spokesman said that in light of majority support at the Scottish Parliament for a referendum, it will continue to set out through the Building a New Scotland Perspective series what can be done with the full powers of independence. They know they cannot have a referendum. They're still wasting money on this. And the only reason there's a majority in the Scottish Parliament is simply because the SNP are the majority party. There is not a majority view for this in the nation. We know that. We've seen the results of the last referendum. And that's it. But yeah, it's the sheer hubris of the woman to spend public money on her personal crusade. It's quite wrong, and I hope it does go to court. I hope she's dragged up in front of the court, and I hope she is imprisoned for what is effectively misuse of public funds. And it is an imprisonable offence. And I'd love to see her do serious time for this, for the level of corruption. She is effectively stealing public money, taxpayers' money, for party political ends. It is quite illegal. Anyway, I'm going to finish there and come up. Now, of course, one of the upshots of the Supreme Court decision last week was that not only does she not have the right to call a referendum, but it means that constitutionally she has no right to make the next election a single issue, because that would be a de facto referendum, if not a de jure one. So it would also therefore be constitutionally illegal. So she needs to be very careful that she doesn't break constitutional law and doesn't break election law. Well, she has to be careful. I mean, I would love her to break the law. She could end up being disbarred from office, which would be quite a shame, really, wouldn't it? And I use quite a shame in a way that means actually the complete opposite. But she is absolutely obsessed with this. She will let Scotland destroy itself rather than give up her dreams of becoming the supreme leaderine of the Scottish nation. I don't know what her cost, but now she's stealing money from taxpayers to push this agenda. I hope the people of Scotland realise that it's not in their best interest to have a corrupt, egomaniacal, narcissistic, psychopath, child-harming, woman-hating racist as their leader. And let's see what happens at the next election. Anyway, I shall finish there. If you like what you're seeing here on the channel, please hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. Ring the bell for notification of future output. Leave a like, leave a comment. Please share the video. And until next time, stay safe, stay well. Don't let those bastards steal your money. And goodbye.